His fingers were still stained with oil paint when he lifted my dress. I felt the cold air brush against the heat between my thighs. My legs trembled, not from fear but from the thrill of betrayal. His breath was warm. His lips were softer than I imagined, and in that quiet studio, just behind the wall, where our portraits of decency hung, I let him take me deep, raw, unapologetically against the very table where I had once painted my wedding portrait. I moaned his name, while my husband's sermon echoed on my phone streaming in the background, and that was how it started. Thank you all so much for subscribing to the channel. I truly appreciate every single one of you for coming along on this emotional, wild journey. To all my new and returning viewers who are yet to hit that subscribe button, I cannot wait for you to do so. Your support is the fuel that powers this channel and keeps these stories coming alive. Please do not forget to engage. Drop your thoughts in the comments immediately after this hook. I want to hear everything. My name is Madeline Shaw. I am 38 years old, and I live in a quiet suburb in North Carolina. My house has white picket fences, manicured hedges, and a husband who no longer touches me. Greg and I have been married for 12 years. On paper, he is everything a woman should want. Successful, handsome, a pillar of the church community. But what those papers never show are the nights I lie awake, cold beside a man who chooses God's word over my body. Greg stopped seeing me years ago, not as a person, not as a woman, only as his holy partner, someone to smile beside him on Sundays and host women's prayer groups in our kitchen. But I had other dreams. Dreams of color, of passion, of skin against canvas, and soul against soul. I owned a small art studio tucked between a vintage bookstore and a yoga shop. It was quiet, mostly filled with bored housewives trying to rediscover themselves with watercolors. And then came Eliot Carter. He walked in one humid afternoon, wearing black ripped jeans and a leather satchel across his chest. His tattoos peeked out from beneath a charcoal t-shirt. He asked me if I taught private sketch classes. I said yes. I said yes without asking why a 25-year-old man would want to learn charcoal blending from a nearly 40-year-old woman. I said yes because his eyes stared through me, not politely, not professionally, but like he had already undressed me in his mind. The first few classes were normal. He drew quietly, and I corrected him. We barely spoke, but I noticed things, like how his sketch pad was filled with drawings of women with long necks, bare backs and parted lips. They looked like me. One even wore a necklace similar to the one Greg gave me on our 5th anniversary. He never said it, but I knew. He was painting me. I tried to ignore it. I tried to remember the woman I was raised to be, loyal, proper, God-fearing. But every time I saw his hands wrap around the pencil, every time his lips curled into a half-smile when I leaned too close, I felt something reawaken inside me, something Greg had buried beneath years of cold sheets and sanctimony. It happened on a Friday. The studio was empty. I had locked the front door and hung the closed sign early. I was cleaning brushes when he stepped behind me, his breath grazing my neck. I did not move. He reached over my shoulder, but instead of grabbing a brush, his hand slid across my waist. "Do you want me to stop?" he whispered. I said nothing. He turned me around, eyes searching mine, not for permission but for guilt, and when he found none, he kissed me, hard, hungry, like he had waited months to do it. I should have stopped him. I should have pushed him away. I should have remembered the vows I made at the altar, but all I could remember was how long it had been since someone kissed me like that. Not sweetly, not cautiously, but with fire. He lifted me onto the back table and I let him. My skirt slid up and he slid inside me like he belonged there, like we had done it 100 times before. I forgot everything. I forgot Greg. I forgot Sunday service. I forgot my name, and when it was over, I looked into Eliot's eyes, and instead of shame, I saw something worse, because that was not going to be the last time. That night, I went home. I cooked dinner like always. Greg said a long prayer before we ate. I stared at his hands. Hands that used to make me melt, hands that now only held the Bible, and I realized how far gone I already was. My body had betrayed him. My heart was next. The next time it happened, it was not an accident. There was no pretending it was a heat-of-the-moment mistake. I walked into the studio with trembling hands, a fast-beating heart, and no intention of teaching art that afternoon. Eliot was already there, standing shirtless in front of the mirror, sketching his reflection. His jeans hung low, revealing the sharp curve of his hips. His back was laced with lines of ink, a mural of pain and rebellion carved into his skin. He turned when he heard the door shut behind me. Neither of us spoke. The air between us was thick, soaked with lust, soaked with sin. I reached for the closed sign and flipped it without breaking eye contact. From that moment, everything became a blur of mouths, skin, paint-stained fingers, and my moans muffled against his shoulder. My marriage had become a portrait of absence. But Eliot painted me with desire. He studied my body like it was art. He knew where to place his hands, how to pull sounds from me I had not made in years. It was not love. It was hunger, a deep, raw hunger I had buried for so long under grocery lists, church committees, and hollow kisses. But secrets do not stay hidden for long. Greg began to notice. He did not ask me outright, but I could see it in the way he looked at me longer, colder. He started showing up at the studio unannounced. Once he walked in while I was helping Eliot with a figure sketch. I had already pulled away before Greg opened the door, but my face betrayed me. I smiled too hard. My voice was too cheerful. Greg's eyes narrowed. "Who is he?" asked later that night as I folded laundry. I lied. I said Eliot was a student, a hobbyist from the community center, nothing more. Greg nodded slowly, but I knew he did not believe me. He stopped touching me altogether after that night. Even our quick obligatory Sunday morning kisses dried up. I should have been scared. I should have been pulling away from Eliot, trying to fix my marriage, but I kept going back. I wanted him more with every stolen second, every secret whisper. Every time we made love, I felt less like a sinner and more like a woman rediscovering her body. One rainy Thursday, Eliot asked me if I would come to his apartment. It was a small place, dim, cluttered, warm. He had candles burning, music playing softly. He cooked for me. We ate with our legs tangled on his couch, and for the first time, I saw something vulnerable in him. He told me about his past. His mother was an artist too. She had loved a man who made her promises he never kept. When she got pregnant, he abandoned her. She struggled. She died of heart failure in her 50s. Poor alone. I listened, heartbreaking, as Eliot described how that betrayal turned him cold, how he never believed in love, after watching what it did to his mother. "I used to think women like you were part of the problem," he said. "Married, comfortable, untouchable. I should have taken that as a warning, but I kissed him instead. I kissed him like I could erase his pain with my lips." That night, we made love in his bed, slow, deep, almost tender, and for a moment, I forgot I was betraying anyone. I just felt free. But Greg had eyes, and the devil loves silence. One evening, as I pulled into the driveway after a long studio session, Greg was waiting on the porch, arms crossed. His phone was in his hand. His face was a mask. "Who is he, Madeline?" My throat dried up. "I saw you," he continued. "You were holding hands near the bookstore. You kissed him before you got into your car." I wanted to lie. I wanted to say it meant nothing, but I could not. So I said the truth. "His name is Eliot." Greg stared at me like he did not know me anymore. Maybe he did not. Maybe I had changed into someone I could not recognize either. He turned and went inside without another word. The next week was cold. Greg stopped sleeping in the same bed. I still cooked. I still cleaned. I still showed up at Sunday service, pretending everything was fine, but I was hollow inside. And worse, Eliot began to pull away too. His texts became less frequent, his touches less urgent. I asked him what was wrong, but he only smiled and said he had work to do. I should have known something was off. Then came the day everything unraveled. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had planned to surprise Eliot at his apartment, with takeout, and a new sketchbook I had bought him, but when I arrived, the door was slightly open. I knocked. No answer. I pushed it wider. What I saw twisted my stomach. Greg was inside, standing there, staring at a wall, filled with sketches, portraits of me, dozens of them, some nude, some raw, all unmistakably me. And Eliot, he was leaning against the far wall, arms crossed, eyes gleaming like a boy caught in the fire he had started. Greg turned to me slowly, rage burning behind his eyes. "So this is who he is." My legs buckled, my voice disappeared. But Eliot did not look ashamed. He looked satisfied. "Madeline," Greg whispered, "do you even know who this man is?" I looked at Eliot, waiting, needing him to say something, but instead he said this. "Tell her, Greg. Tell her why you look so familiar to me. Greg's face dropped, paled. I am the son of Celeste Carter, Eliot said. Ring a bell. Greg's mouth parted, but no sound came out. And that was when I realized, this had never been about me. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of an old ceiling fan slicing through the tension. My heart pounded in my chest as Eliot's words wrapped around me like a noose. I am the son of Celeste Carter. The name sounded familiar, distant, ghost-like. I looked at Greg. His jaw was clenched. His hands trembled by his side. I had never seen him this still before, not even during our worst fights. Greg, I said slowly. Who is she? He swallowed hard, and sat down on Eliot's worn sofa. He looked older suddenly, smaller, beat. Celeste was someone I knew, before you, before everything. We dated when I was younger. I left her. It was complicated. Eliot stepped forward, voice sharper than any palette knife I had ever held. You did not just leave her, you used her. You promised her marriage, a future. And when she got pregnant, you disappeared, left her to rot in a trailer park while you climbed your way into the church, into a new house, into a new life. My knees gave way, and I sat on the arm of a nearby chair, completely shattered. I was not just a cheating wife. I was a pawn in a vengeance plot I never saw coming. You seduced me, I whispered to Eliot. He nodded, shamelessly. I wanted to ruin him. I thought using you would break his image, tear down his perfect little world. But then, his voice trailed off. But then, he looked away, his jaw tight. Then I started to like you, maybe even more than I should have. Greg stood and pointed at Eliot. You came into my house. You defiled my wife. Eliot laughed bitterly. She was already starving before I touched her. Do not blame me for what you neglected. Greg lunged forward, but I stepped between them. That is enough, I screamed. Tears streamed down my face as both men looked at me. One betrayed, the other bitter, and I stood there, caught in the center of two storms I never asked for. That night, I did not return home. I drove aimlessly through the rain, past churches, diners, old memories I wanted to forget. I ended up at a cheap motel on the edge of town. The room smelled like dust and sadness. I sat on the bed, and tried to make sense of what I had become. I had betrayed my vows. I had fallen for a man who used me as a weapon. I had discovered my husband was not the moral man I had painted him to be. Everything I believed in, the marriage, the love, even the guilt, was crumbling. The next morning, I walked into my studio for the first time in days. Everything looked different. The paints seemed dull, the brushes were dry, the table where Eliot once lifted me was stained with memories I could not wash off. I stared at a blank canvas, and sobbed. Then I picked up a brush. I painted pain, betrayal, seduction, rage. I painted a portrait of myself, nude, vulnerable, holding a broken heart in my hand like a bleeding fruit. It was not beautiful, it was not delicate, but it was honest. Greg filed for separation a week later. The church learned of the affair, and he stepped down as deacon. People whispered behind our backs. Some blamed me, others blamed him, but it did not matter anymore. Eliot disappeared. He left town without a word. I heard rumors he moved north to a place where no one knew his name. He left his sketchbook behind in my studio. It was filled with drawings of me, some angry, some gentle. One had a note on the back. I never meant to feel anything. Months passed. I sold the house. I kept the studio. I started teaching again. Real students this time. Older women, broken like me, using paint to escape the cages of their lives. I stopped praying the way Greg taught me. I found my own kind of faith in truth, in art, in pain. Sometimes I think of Eliot. I wonder if he still draws me. I wonder if he still dreams of revenge. I do not hate him. In a strange, twisted way, he woke me up. And as for Greg, he is still in town, still silent, still angry, but I see the shame in his eyes every time we pass each other. He was not innocent. None of us were. This was not a story of heroes or happy ending. It was a story of flawed people drawn together by desire, pulled apart by truth. A masterpiece ruined, a heart awakened, a life reborn.